Yeah, so our first match of today is going to be between two very good players that we've got here, Jack Lloyd and Dimitri Koziaris. So I believe we've got Jack's team up on the stream now. Jack's been playing for probably the better half of the last three or so years. Prior to that, it was mostly online. But he's been coming out strong with performances like he's made top 8 of Brisbane Regionals last year. I believe he made day 2 at Worlds this past year gone, came 39th, top 16 at Melbourne Regionals 2024 as well. He's been having a really strong impact in his kind of early start to his career.
Yeah, absolutely phenomenal showcasing from Jack, as will be from everyone else. So a very solid resume coming out as someone who's probably more on the fresher side of big tournament results. It'll be interesting to see how he goes in the new regulation coming out. I think we should go over his team because there's some pretty exciting stuff on his team that I think should be discussed.
Yeah, 100%. So Jack, generally known as a connoisseur for body press, always enjoying things like the Coma O back prior to these restricted formats, and then Zamazenta in them. So a lot of people might have been expecting to see that. He's actually swapped out the Zamazenta for another fighting type in Annihilate, which we really don't see too often, but pairing it with the Groudon and the Ho-Oh, that coaching is going to be putting in a lot of work.
Yeah, big lot of work there. I really like the use of Taunt on the Annihilate as well. Taunt just seems like quite a strong move, and it's fighting and ghost coverage there. Basically not really being resisted by anything except for, of course, Hisuian Zoroark. With the Stellar Terra typing as well, so it can run as support, but also looks like it can dish out its fair share of damage.
Yeah, sure can. And rounding out that kind of real Sun core there, we've got the Raging Bolt, the Scream Talon, the Incineroar. Raging Bolt, obviously loving that Sun, getting that Photosynthesis procced. And generally, getting that special attack boost, getting it to dish out some really big damage. Those big Life Orb, Thunderclaps, Thunderbolts, like that damage is going to be going nuts in Sun. And then there's the Scream Tail, which personal favorite of mine. I've always loved playing with the on-core disable stuff, but it's just so strong, especially in these big restricted formats where you've got so many things like Miraidon running Choice Specs. You've got the Urshifu, which is always such a big threat running Choice Scarf. It's really easy to kind of get a protect in front of those, pseudo protect in front of the Urshifu, but the Sun really helps with that. And then get things off like the big disable, just shut it down completely, or force switches.
Yeah, what I also find is pretty interesting as well. Groudon Not Clear Amulet. This one is got its trusty vest on with some really cool coverage on there. The thing I like is the Shadow Claw, naturally for the Calyrex Shadow Rider, but also the Lunala as well, as that's seeing a bit more of a rise in usage with the 2 restricted Pokemon allowed on a team.
Yeah, a tech that we saw heavily pick up back in 2022 in the Dynamax era for those big Max Phantasms, still relevant here with the real kind of domination of Calyrex Shadow at the beginning of this Reg G format. We've seen so much of the Calyrex Shadow Zamazenta has probably been the most popular and consistent team that we've had so far. Shohei Kimura just over the past weekend winning the Victory Road tournament, I think either undefeated or only dropping 1 set with it. It just shows kind of how dominant that is. But yeah, the Shadow Claw covering for things like that, either just for the good damage or really pressuring them to Terra in positions where they may need to Terra something else late game.
Yeah, forcing Terastallization is always something that you would like to prefer to do, and that option on that Groudon does allow Jack to force that onto the opposition. And I think speaking of the opposition, let's get into who Jack is playing today.
Absolutely. So on the other side of the field, we've got Dimitri Koziaris. Also really popped out in the last few years. Really had his kind of showcasing run. His biggest being this year at Oceania's first regional of the season, being Perth Regionals. He came in second place with Kilowattrel, so not really what you'd expect to be seeing at that time. I know there was a little bit of Kilowattrel floating around, but it hadn't gotten some high results until Dimitri really flourished with it.
Yeah, phenomenal showing there, and we're going to look over the current team that he has. So he's got the Terapagos and Calyrex Shadow Rider, as we were mentioning previously. Terapagos running Focus Sash, actually, Henry.
Yeah, Focus Sash Terapagos. Not something we really thought we'd... I don't think anyone really thought they'd see that. Its ability being so kind of integral to letting it take those first hits most of the time. But with things like Koraidon being so popular, Zamazenta being so popular, a lot of the time the Terapagos really wants to just get its Terra out of the way and not have to worry about it. And this can guarantee it some big hits against maybe those Terrifier Koraidons that just want to go for those big collision causes or close combats turn one. Lets you get off kind of those Terra Starstorms in front of potentially a Zamazenta. But that Sash might also be an indication of potentially how it's trained and being one of maybe the faster and more hard-hitting variants. We do see it forego that normal substitute that we've been seeing it towards the end of Regulation G for the Earth Power instead.
Yeah, which makes 100% sense on a Focus Sash set. Sash and a substitute, bit counterintuitive with each other. So, yeah, I do see that line of thought there from Dimitri there. And the Shadow Rider has Encore and Disable with solo Astral Barrage as its attack. So,
it does. We might actually have an error on the team sheet here. It looks like the Calyrex and the Terapagos both have Focus Sash. So, out of the two of them, considering there's the Encore Disable, I'd assume that Calyrex Shadow is actually the one running the Focus Sash, and it's actually a leftovers on the Terapagos. So, we've just come into that. But no, the Encore Disable war between both sides is going to be really interesting to see because it often puts in so much work in its respective matchups, and going up against things like the Calm Mind Terapagos, going up against things like maybe the Ho-Oh or the Groudon, wanting to either lock things into or out of those moves that are going to be really affecting the match is often quite pivotal to how the set turns out.
Yeah, for sure. And then just a generally good supporting cast. You've got your Incin, you've got your Rillaboom, you've got Half-Flame Ogerpon as your redirector, and a Scarf Landorus there for some of those matchups where it'd be required for more of your like your Miraidon matchups, per se.
Yeah, that Half-Flame going to really be able to take advantage of the Sun on Jack's side of the field. Those Terrifier Ivy Cudgels hit so hard out of Sun alone, and they're going to be hitting even harder in the Sun. And interesting to see that the Half-Flame has actually opted to go for the Horn Leech rather than the Grassy Glide, which we often see Half-Flame pick up when they double up with the Rillaboom. But it gives it just that bit of recovery, that bit more recovery on top of the Grassy Train, giving it a bit more longevity. And then, yeah, this Landorus here, Terra Ghost Scarf, looking to be very much like a Miraidon answer, but not necessarily the sort of one that we always see.
Yeah, the Terra Ghost gives me an idea of like you know, maybe just being like immune to that fake out, going for those hits. Not from what I've seen, not the most common Terra I've seen on Landorus, but maybe it's something that's been picking up, or maybe Dimitri's cooking.
Look, it absolutely could be. I personally did use Scarf Landorus, but with the Terra Ground myself at NIIC last year, and the Scarf puts in so much work. But the Terra Ghost, it lets it dodge things like Fake Out, like dodging a Fake Out turn one into dropping a big Earth Power into an Incineroar, or even just a hit in general, maybe even the U-turn, because it's got that pivot option there. It can be so good. It can be so big. Dodging that Fake Out when they're not really expecting it, because with the Terapagos generally being a bit of a Terra hog on the team, surprise Terras like that can actually be really intuitive, really unexpected, and can really turn the tide of some games.
Yeah, you've just mentioning pivoting moves as well. Dimitri has 3 of them on his team there. The 2 U-turns and the parting shots, so could be looking to see a lot of maintaining and controlling board state from Dimitri's end with those. Where I don't think we saw as much from Jax. I think we only saw the parting shot from the Incineroar in that regard. Yeah,
we sure did. We're gonna get the players jumping into team preview pretty soon. But yeah, just this matchup, it's gonna be so it's a really interesting matchup. You've got kind of an unexpected team, one that that we haven't really seen a lot of, which is that Ho-Oh Groudon. Really powerful physical Sun Core, and where both of those generally want the Clear Amulet. Both actually opting not to go for it because that Annihilate really covers those Intimidates, getting the boost on Annihilate, plus being able to just kind of coaching up the physical attackers beside it, versus Terapagos Cali Shadow.
Yeah, excellent intimidate deterrent there from the Annihilate. The last thing Incineroar wants to do is kind of sit there in front of an Annihilate to come in and threaten anything else with it. I'm super excited to see the Sun Core, though. I am a big Ho-Oh fan, so seeing it in action is always going to make me smile. It's going to be great. It's going to be a really, really good set I see between these two.
It is. Jack is going to have to watch out, though, because there is that Terrapagos on the other side of the field. Terrapagos, obviously, when it terrestrializes, being able to get rid of the Sun really shuts down kind of a large portion of what Jack's team is built around. And with that Sun down, we're dropping the special attack boost that Raging Bolt gets. The Screamtail is not going to have the freedom to switch in and out while still maintaining its speed. So he's going to have to watch that booster energy very carefully, because if that Screamtail switches out and in at the wrong time, that Calyrex Shadow is going to be causing it a lot of problems.
Yeah, absolutely spot on there. So good to keep an eye out there for that. Looks like we're getting into it now. The action's about to start with our game 1.
First match of the day. Let's get into it.
Here we go. All right, and we see the Terrapagos lead with the Half-Flame Ogerpon on Dimitri's end and the Incineroar and Ho-Oh up on Jack's end.
Yeah, so a big Intimidate coming out onto that Half-Flame turn 1. Not really affecting the Terrapagos, but that Ho-Oh getting in unintimidated and really threatening that Ogerpon with some powerful either Sacred Fires if the Sun could switch in, but that Brave Bird being the big one. The Half-Flame kind of in a bit of a position here, but that Terrapagos sitting kind of pretty. It might might want to protect in front of a Fake Out, but it also does have that option just to go for the Carmines.
Yeah, protecting in front of the Fake Out could be a play. There's also the option to Fake Out Discount for potentially a Parting Shot to sort of wait for it a turn. We'll see what happens. So we do see the Double Protect come out there from Dimitri, Protect and Spiky Shield. And Jack looks like he's gone for a Tailwind, so there's no Fake Out there, and a Parting Shot there as well coming out from him, so...
Yeah, so Jack recognizing it's very likely for there to be a safe play, and Dimitri taking that safe play of the Double Protect in front of the Fake Out. Jack making sure he gets that speed control and doesn't kind of just burn a turn of nothing happening.
Yeah, good insight from Jack there. We'll see how Dimitri deals with these incoming turns of Tailwind. So we do see the Follow Me coming out with the Annihilate switch out as well from Jack's end.
Yeah, so big Sacred Fire coming out, only doing about 40% there, and the Terrapagos doing what Terrapagos does best and setting up one of those Calm Mines. Terrapagos often liking to really set itself up before it really starts taking, dealing damage, taking big KOs, and perhaps terrestrializing to get that spread damage going. But the Annihilate on the field now does carry that taunt. So depending on the speed interactions between the Ho-Oh and the Annihilate, we could see something like a KO plus a taunt into an attempted KO plus a taunt into the Terrapagos. But there's a lot of options here because coaching is also there as well.
Yeah, coaching is another option that could be brought out if Jack wants to look to be on the offensive with the Ho-Oh, which is definitely a possibility, getting that to +1. Also offsetting a potential Intimidate if an Incineroar is in the back looking to switch in there. But it looks like we're seeing our first terrestrialization from the Terrapagos.
Yeah, so the Terrapagos getting that big terrestrialization off. No weather, no terrain for it to remove at the moment. But the big thing is it's got that +1 boost and can now hit both sides. Also allowing it to hit the Annihilate now that its attack is Terra Stellar instead of just normal type. And the Annihilate is opting to go for that coaching. So that Ho-Oh becoming another real setup threat, kind of in the opposite way to the way that the Terrapagos is. And a huge Brave Bird coming out to take the Ogerpon.
Yeah, so Ogerpon sacrificing itself to keep the Terrapagos as healthy as it can be as it looks to fire off what I believe would be a Terra Starstorm, getting big damage on both of these Pokemon on Jack's end here.
Yeah, so a pretty decent trade there from these two sides. Like that Half-Flame did its job. It protected the Terrapagos for those few turns. It's gone down now, but the Sash is broken on the Annihilate. The Ho-Oh has taken damage as well. This Terrapagos, so bulky, is going to really start dishing out some damage, but it does have these two physical attackers in front of it. Rillaboom coming in again like that Half-Flame. to support it in a different way with that fake out pressure.
Fake out pressure, grassy terrain, recovery alongside that leftovers just going to allow Terapagos to just heal just more and more constantly if damage as passing turns go by. So we'll look to see what game plan Jack has to for the Rillaboom coming in, see how he looks to adjust to that.
Yeah.
See how,
I'm
interesting
not...
to see what Dimitri's got planned.
Yeah, unlike Dimitri's options turn 1, the Annihilate is not carrying a Protect, so double Protect isn't an option here. We do see the Ho-Oh going for the Protect, though. It is the obvious Fake Out target, with the Annihilate being the Ghost typing, and that Fake Out does go into the Protect. And another Coaching comes out. Coaching, one of those few moves that's able to go through a Protect, just making sure that Ho-Oh is nice and boosted on the physical side, both defensively and offensively. It'll be hitting really hard now. But there's the Terapagos going for another spread move, and it should be enough to take out the Annihilate.
It should be enough to pick up the Annihilate here. The Annihilate taking just a bit over 50% on that previous turn. So, yeah, that's right. And with the Incineroar coming in now, making Rillaboom just a little bit more weaker, just making sure that those Wood Hammers and U-turns don't hit Ho-Oh too hard.
Yeah, so the Insane giving, again, as last we saw on turn 1, that Fake Out pressure, but that Intimidate really dropping the Rillaboom, who's already not happy looking down at these two fire types. But we don't see any Protects at all this time from Dimitri's side, as the Sacred Fire, massive at +2, super effective, comes into that Rillaboom and it takes it out. That's both Grass types going down to this Ho-Oh, which you'd expect to see, but it's the supportive roles that they've been filling have been allowing this Terapagos to really kind of just sit there, boost, and now start getting off some damage. We see the Terapagos go back all the way to full from the Fake Out damage due to that Grassy Terrain and leftovers.
And there's the fourth there, the Calyrex Shadow Rider coming out here for Dimitri. So we can see, does the Terapagos and co look to clutch up, or is Ho-Oh just going to run away with it?
Yeah, so this Ho-Oh still very scary. Those boosts are just threatening so much right now. And the Insin as well in a really good spot. Most Insin we see nowadays are trained to be fairly bulky. So it'd be interesting to see if it's able to live the double up between a Terra Starstorm or an Astral Barrage. But that we can't forget that Terapagos also has access to Earth Power, so a +1 Terra Stellar Earth Power could be enough to take it out in a quick surprise KO and bring this down to potentially a double restricted game.
Yeah, it didn't even cross my mind that that was an option. So we'll see if Dimitri sees that line as well, if that's the line he wants to go for. But the Tailwind going up means the parting shot comes out before the Terapagos attack, so Instant lives to see another day.
Yeah, so interesting to see the speed interaction there. Ho-Oh moving before the Terapagos. Possibly hinting towards a faster Ho-Oh, possibly hinting towards a slower Terapagos. Both Pokemon are kind of in that middling speed range, so it could be either way, but that parting shot being kind of really big to get off first. But Dimitri going with another Calm Mind. So that parting shot, while dropping the special attack, Dimitri just gets that straight back up. So this Terapagos is still in a position to dish out some good damage.
Yeah, we've got the ground on it in Tailwind now, and as we've seen that tech we discussed earlier, we've got that Shadow Claw that's eyeing off that Calyrex Shadow Rider now. No access to Terra, but Protect on the previous turn, so it's could be looking a bit scary for the horse there.
Yeah, the Calyrex really in a bit of trouble here. It's so fast, so much damage accessible to it, but with the Tailwind up, it might just not be fast enough. We see the Groudon going first. Again, faster than the Ho-Oh, so these speed interactions between all these restricteds is really interesting, but it looks like both of Jack's are faster than the Terapagos, even without the Tailwind. And down goes the Calyrex Shadow without getting to get off move off in this game.
Yeah, not commonly what you see from a Shadow Rider. Not being able to do too much there. There's the Starstorm damage. Doing a little bit, but there's going to be a lot of passive recovery from these two with the leftovers and grassy terrain respectively.
Yeah, the Assault Vest on Groudon really putting in work, as well as just what we mentioned before in that massive natural special bulk that Ho-Oh has. This Terapagos only able to hit on the special side and only has access to a potential 8 Star Storms. So as the damage stacks up, the PP goes down. And we'll see if that Terapagos is able to get that damage down in time before it has to start clicking Earth Power, because if it does, that Ho-Ohs can be very happy with itself.
Yeah, for sure. So we see a Precipice Blades coming out, hitting there, doing a respectable bit of damage. I'm going to see the +2 Sun Boosted Sacred Fire. That's enough to take it out.
Yeah, Terapagos is massively bulky Pokemon. Its HP stat goes through the roof when it terastallizes. But the sheer amount of boosts that Ho-Oh has, the +2 from the 2 coachings, the Sun Boost, and Sacred Fire just being such a hard-hitting move. That doubled up with the Precipice Blades, both connecting, which could be very different if either of those miss. It just deals so much, and it's so overwhelming.
Yeah, so strong showcasing there from Jack right out the gate. What will be exciting to see is the adaptation from Dimitri.
Yeah, really looking forward to see how Dimitri can respond to this, because in that game, once the speed control went up, it kind of allowed Jack to kind of go nuts with getting those coaching boosts off, getting those big hits off with the Ho-Oh before anything else on the other side of the field could move. We saw the Tailwind meant that Calyrex Shadow didn't even get to get off a move other than that Protect. It'd be really interesting to see something maybe like the Incineroar from Dimitri's side come out, because while it does put in a lot of work, if he can play around that Annihilate, it's like the Intimidates go so far, and as well as the Parting Shot and a potential Will-O-Wisp as well. While being threatened by the ground type moves from Groudon, those Intimidates generally allow it to live at least 1 or 2 hits. It stays on the field, it gets Parting Shots off, knockoffs off, and it can put in a lot of work there. We saw the 2 grass types really struggle against the Ho-Oh, so I'm really interested to see if there's an adaptation coming from that slot.
Yeah, as am I. Incineroar seems like a very nice adjustment as long as you play carefully around that Annihilate. It can also force a terrestrialization from the Groudon, as it is the Terra Fly, to try and avoid a Will-O-Wisp burn. So, because I don't believe Jack used terrestrialization at all in that game 1.
I don't believe he did, no. And we also saw, we saw all 4 Pokemon come out from Jack in the end. We saw the Raging Bolt and the Screamtail left behind. The Screamtail generally being able to shut things down well, maybe with an Encore into the Terapagos, but we're seeing that left behind, and because of that, Calyrex Shadow, if it can keep that speed advantage that it naturally has by potentially shutting down some Tailwinds and stuff like that, could really go nuts with a bit of Encore Disable shenanigans. And we do see an adjustment.
And we do indeed. We see an Annihilate lead, and a Rillaboom lead. So 2 adjustments made one from each side.
So kind of as you are.
Yeah, I was gonna. It would be interesting to see the game plan here now. So we've got the fake out option on the Ho-Oh there, pretty opened up. Can't really do that to the Annihilate. The Annihilate being Sash means it can pretty comfortably take anything Rillaboom wants to throw at it and still hang around.
Yes.
But it'd be interesting to see, do we see a coaching? Do we even see a taunt to stop the Terapagos setting up?
Last time we were in this position, we saw the fake out go into the Ho-Oh Protect and the coaching come out, just really boosting up that Ho-Oh on those turns. This time, though, more of a defensive play. We see that Calyrex Shadow switching in for the Terapagos, possibly calling a Protect on the Ho-Oh and preparing to get off an Encore into that, as that's what we saw last game. But instead, we see no Protect come out. The fake out goes into the Ho-Oh and a taunt coming onto what was that Terapagos slot. Most likely trying to shut down that Calm Mind option, but catching the the Calyrex Shadow on the switch in, shuts down the Disable, shuts down the Encore, and means there's no defensive option of protecting either this turn.
Yeah, that the Shadow Rider's basically locked into either Astral Barraging or going for another switch back into something else in Dimitri's backline.
Yeah, so this Calyrex also, it is looking to, while the Calyrex is unable to Encore, Disable, Protect, it is got there with, sorry, it has gotten there without Tailwind being up on the opposing side. Astral Barrage really threatening this Annihilate, especially since you can double up on it with a potential Grassy Glide to break that Focus Sash, and also just start actually dishing out some damage this game, which is why we see this Incineroar coming in on Jack's side. Jack realizing how under threat his Annihilate is, making sure that he gets it out of there so that it can do more work later.
And we do see the Astral Barrage come out here. We're doing pretty sizable chunk to both of these. The Sacred Fire coming out there, getting the burn on the Calyrex as well. 50% chance of that happening. All the more reason that Sacred Fire is just such a dangerous move. We saw the damage it could do in game 1, and we see what happens if it doesn't pick up KOs. In this game, it just gets that nasty burn. So it's keeping Calyrex on a timer now if it's not being attacked.
Yeah, so Jack getting that pivot out as well, just in a different way, going for the U-turn instead of the hard switch, getting that Rillaboom off the field. There are now 2 fire types there, and last time it was in this position, it did not enjoy that at all. Those Sacred Fires, Brave Birds, and even the Will-O-Wisps, plus Intimidate coming out from the Incien, really just reinforcing that Rillaboom does not want to be on the field. Big damage coming out from the Sacred Fire, that burn, kind of just negating any recovery that Calyrex could get from the grassy terrain. And there's the Terapagos coming out onto the field again in replacement of that Rillaboom.
Yeah, so we'll see Terapagos not in front of any Taunters now. Maybe it'll see if it's got the option to look at... See if you can get set up those Calm Minds, looking to see if that's the win condition for Dimitri there.
Yeah, this Ho-Oh so far in this set has been so kind of oppressive. These 2 special attacking restricteds really struggling to break through that massive special defense stat. But the Terapagos is in a position now where, aside from Fake Out, it can get off those Calm Minds, start boosting its damage again. And maybe we see something like that Terra Stellar Earth Power coming out onto the Incin this time, because that Incin is also such a threat. We see it going for those parting shots. It threatens knockoff, and it takes almost no damage from these Calyrex Shadow Astral Barrages. So getting some big damage into that, or potentially a KO, could really turn the tide of this game.
Yeah, so turn comes out here. We're just seeing Astral Barrage again, just slowly adding up, just doing the damage it needs to do. Goes down to the Brave Bird there. So Ho-Oh's going to be taking a little bit of recoil. All that will hopefully add up. As we see the Calm Mind from the Terapagos there, looking to see if we can get that slowly set up.
Yeah, there was no Fake Out either, so there's that parting shot coming out, going into that Terapagos. So while it's got that special defense boost still on it, it does lose that special attack boost that it was really, really wanting to keep from that Calm Mind. But there's been no speed control clicked from this Ho-Oh. The Ho-Oh hasn't been going for those tailwinds yet, just been going for that raw damage. And it's really kind of low from the combination of the Astral Barrages and the Brave Bird. But yeah, there's the Scream Tail. We talked about not seeing it last game, and here it is now.
So we're going to see that there. That's got to be a rough side for Dimitri. He's gone for that Calm Mind, and immediately there's looking to be some encore pressure from the Scream Tail. So seeing how Dimitri wants to deal with that. The Ogre Pond is a good shout. Good shout for that. Being able to redirect away any of those if he needs to do so.
Yeah, so some form of protection needing to come out for that Terapagos there, unless you want it on-court or just stuck protecting. The Ogre Pond being Dimitri's choice here, having the option of that Follow Me, but sometimes it is also just the fear of that Follow Me that kind of stops them from doing what they want to do. You don't particularly want to encore it into a Follow Me. But this Ho-Oh, again, Grass type in front of it is really threatening some huge damage. It hasn't got a coaching boost at the moment. But it's still a restricted Pokemon. Its stab is that flying, that same type attack bonus. And it's strengthening some really huge damage here, and that Screamtail is just so good for the controlling style that Jack seems to be playing.
Yeah, he's decided to switch out Ho-Oh, just get a little bit more HP back with that Regenerator ability, just to allow it to be more oppressive as it comes back in later on in the match. We see the Terrestrialization. I would imagine this would be on the... Oh, it's on the Ogerpon! It's not on the Terrapagos.
So the Ogerpon Half-Flame, recognizing that weakness that it has to the potential Brave Birds coming out, getting rid of it. It does not want to be taking those super effective Brave Birds. It does not potentially want to be getting knocked out in one hit. As we see, no Follow Me, but the Encore does come out onto that Terrapagos, and it will be going for another Carmine.
Yeah, we see the Cudgel there. Look like just want to get a bit aggressive there. Doing a relatively decent amount of damage. The Intimidate being offset there by the boost that the Ogerpon gets when it terrestrializes.
Yeah, Ogerpon probably really wanting to hit that that Ho-Oh, try to get that knockout while it is still at low HP, but Ho-Oh, Jack recognizing that, getting the Ho-Oh out of there, getting the Regenerator, so getting some of that HP back on the Ho-Oh, bringing in the Incineroar, getting the Intimidate, and switching in a really good defensive pivot. It worked out really well, and he still managed to get the Encore onto the Terrapagos.
Yeah, so the Terrapagos, you might be seeing it just sit here for a couple of turns, just still looking to click Carmine, depending on if the Ogerpon wants to switch out or not. If it switches out and comes back, it regains that boost. But we see that Disable come out here now from the Screamtail, so there'll be no more Ivy Cudgels being thrown out. As we can see there, it just got locked in. Screamtail saying, no, you can't click that. We don't want that. We don't want that here.
Yeah, so opting not to completely lock out the Terrapagos, Jack pretty content with just leaving it going for those Carmines. If you Carmine, you're not doing anything else, and I can just parting shot those boosts away. The Ogerpon really threatening with those crit chance boosted Ivy Cudgels, and Jack recognizing that and not wanting anything unfortunate to perhaps happen to the Screamtail. Doesn't want any of those big crits coming out because that Ogerpon does hit so hard, and that Screamtail, while it is sitting there in front of the Terrapagos is pretty well shut down as long as Jack can keep Encore pressure onto it.
Yeah, and locking away that Ivy Cudgel, Screamtail, just being as bulky as Screamtail is, can definitely look to do that. Alongside constantly putting the parting shot pressure on the Terrapagos as well, just offsetting any special attack boost it's getting from those Carmines.
The Ho-Oh coming back in so much more healthy. I believe it was down to 52 HP earlier, but that Regenerator putting in such good work. It's now back over 50%, back in the green, and ready to dish out some more damage again without being threatened by those hits anymore.
Yeah, so good insight there from Dimitri, looking to spiky shield away that Encore to not be put into the trap. We do see the Terror Shell activate on the Sacred Fire hit, basically turning that into a not very effective move. And we see another burn. So yeah, very rough sight there. Two for two on the Sacred Fire burns.
Ho-Oh doing what Ho-Oh does best in taking hits and burning its opponents to the ground. But this is a really interesting turn, actually, because that spiky shield there on the Ogerpon, I believe Encore might be ending this turn. If so, that gives this Ogerpon the option of follow me and letting that Terrapagos start getting off some hits. Yeah, there's the Encore going down. I believe the Terrapagos is at plus, with the parting shots, is it +1 or +2 now?
I believe now it's at +2 and +4 special defense. He's got 4 Carmines off there.
Yeah, so even though it can't terrestrialize, those Terra Starstorms are still going to be hitting very, very hard single target against two very bulky Pokemon, possibly not dealing knockouts this turn, but definitely putting things in range of 2 hits. And the Ogerpon has its Ivy Cudgel disabled. It cannot have the Follow Me disabled this turn if that is what it opts to go for.
Yeah, so we do see a Protect from the Screamtail. I do believe we see, a double Protect there from Jack, just looking to gauge Dimitri's game plan here. There's Follow Me, as you mentioned during selection phase, And there is the Terra Starstorm looking to gun down the Ho-Oh here.
Yeah, so Ho-Oh, having taken a bit of chip already, getting that health back from the regenerator, but not all the way back to full. Dimitri trying to get us kind of a big hit onto it. Maybe hoping to get that KO, but at least put it low enough that any Brave Birds it's going for might be enough to knock itself out due to recoil. But Jack just going for the safe play. Double Protect, Screamtail. Protect is its favorite move. Protect lets it do what it wants to do by allowing your opponents to kind of reveal their hand during that turn. But now that has happened, there is still the pressure of Follow Me and a big Terra Starstorm coming out.
Yeah, absolutely. We do need to just keep in mind that it's not Stellar Terra Starstorm, and we still have an Annihilate in the pocket there for Jack, so if that comes in looking to protect the Ho-Oh just getting more HP back because it's not at full yet with that regenerator, could spell a pretty nasty result for Dimitri there, especially if they get an encore up on the following turn on that, forcing the Terrapagos just to burn through those Terra Starstorms as well.
That's for sure. And as you said, there's that Annihilate coming out, that defensive switch, knowing that the Terastallization is already used up. And there's an encore into the Ogerpon, so it's going to be clicking Follow Me for a little while here. And that Terra Starstorm does go into the Ho-Oh slot. What was the Ho-Oh slot again? And the Annihilate, immune because of that ghost typing.
Yep, so Annihilate still looking healthy as ever. I believe that Ogerpon is now encored into Follow Me.
It is, and the disable ends.
Yes, so that one's going to be coming out there. Annihilate actually can threaten big damage on either slot with that close combat, while still being at with the ability to still use its Focus Sash because it's still at full HP.
Yeah, so those close combats threatening big damage, Taunt threatening big damage because you don't necessarily have to disable this Ogerpon. You could go for something like a Dazzling Gleam or a Protect if you think a Terra Starstorm's going that way, and go for the Taunt to lock out that Follow Me instead. There's that Follow Me coming out first, but it is the disable that Jack opts for. This Ogerpon now going to be struggling next turn.
There we are, forced to Protect or switch there for the Ogerpon. We see a good amount of damage there, just under half from that close combat, and even at -1, still not taken down to Sash there from the Annihilate. But Terrapagos just needs to threaten damage on it, as Annihilate's its biggest problem. It can't break it with its Terra Starstorm, so...
Yeah, Dimitri realizing that those Terra Starstorms not hitting that Annihilate, and the Annihilate being immune to the potential fake out in the back, these Earth powers need to start coming out. You need to break that Sash. You need to start stacking up that damage, because this Annihilate has the potential to just put in so much work. Now that Annihilate in range of something late game like a potential Grassy Glide from the Rillaboom, which we know is still in back, but this Screamtail now has kind of the run of its choice when it comes to this Terrapagos. Dimitri's going to need to make that call because there's a potential disable coming out to stop the Earth power if he goes for that, but an encore to also shut him down from going for those big Terra Starstorms, which he'd want to be sending into the Screamtail.
So we've got the Incineroar here. Incineroar. Oh, and we have the Ogerpon switching out as well. Didn't really want to struggle there, so we do see the Rillaboom out now. The Grassy Terrain is back. Rillaboom's still looking relatively healthy in terms of HP.
Yeah, so the Annihilate switching before the Ogerpon there, which kind of is a bit indicative of the speed interactions between the two. Jack's switching out first to get that Intimidate onto the Ogerpon, then the Ogerpon switching out, getting rid of all those drops, ready to come back in later and put in work again. The Terrapagos on Dimitri's side, protecting, wanting to get a fake out next turn onto the Screamtail, but there's also fake out pressure from Jack's end.
Yeah, we can see that there. A lot of just both players looking to want to control the game. We see the Terrapagos are actually switching out here for the Ogerpon. Come back in. There we are. The Embody aspect, just giving it that +1 to its attack, so it's looking nice and powerful again. with the fake out and the encore coming out from Jax and Dimitri playing around that very well. With a U-turn to get the Terapagos back into play while that grassy terrain's there, just helping keeping it as healthy as possible, despite the burn.
Yeah, a really nice play from Dimitri there, realizing that even if he goes for that fake out plus potential attack into that Screamtail, Incineroar faking out the Terapagos means that this next turn, Screamtail can still encore you into Protect. So he gets that Terapagos out of there, even though it means losing those boosts. Gets the Ogerpon back onto the field, and then gets the U-turn to bring the Terapagos straight back again. A really good pivoting play from Dimitri, setting him up into what's looks like a really nice position here.
Yeah, looking fairly good for Dimitri. We'll see the response from Jack in regards to this. 3 minutes left till battle ends. This has been quite the slog between both these trainers here. As we see the Protect and the Switch coming out here from Jack. We do see a Cudgel. That's going into the Ho-Oh slot. This hitting it on its weaker defensive side, and that's probably the most damage we've seen Ho-Oh take all set.
Yeah, that huge special defense stat doesn't help when it comes to these big Ivy Cudgels. While it does resist those fire-type moves, Ogerpon just hitting so hard, especially with that Embody aspect boost and the Terrifier on top of that. These Ivy Cudgels they're going to start stacking up. The Screamtail going for what it goes for, the safe Protect there, allowing it to see what these two Pokemon that have just hit the field lock into, and potentially being able to disable or encore either one, which there's the disable coming out into that Ivy Cudgel. Jack recognizing how threatening it really is.
Yeah, Dimitri seeing through that this time. Elected to Horn Leech up the Screamtail here, just get itself a bit healthy. Looking to hopefully take the Brave Bird better. Very nasty crit.
A big critical hit from the Brave Bird there. Dimitri, knowing that timer is rolling down, trying to take a KO and set this game to 3-on-3, but the Screamtail surviving on 7 HP is absolutely massive.
Yeah, very big there from Jack's Screamtail there. Trained in such a way to just sit there and just exist, basically. So buying that extra turn when the clock is dwindling down always helps. There can't be protects that come out as well. That'll extend that even further. Just keeping Jack's team healthy with the use of the leftovers and the grassy terrain as well, with those burns sort of just offsetting the recovery from the Terapagos. But
yeah.
No protects we see this turn.
We see no Protect. There is that encore threat in front. And with time rolling down, Dimitri realizing he really needs to get these KOs down. That critical hit last turn, guaranteeing that this Ogerpon is in range of another Brave Bird. And it goes down, putting the game at 2v4 with 35 seconds to go.
There we are. Do we see a play from the Terapagos? Oh, the Terra Starstorm is to save, but it would have looked to taken out, I believe, either one of these two at the ranges they're at. 56 HP on Ho-Oh. Maybe not, because Ho-Oh's just an absolute monster in terms of special bulk. But that definitely would have been able to pick up the Screamtail there. That would have made it into a... If the Ogerpon did run out that turn, it would have been 3-3 for it. But it looks like we're going to be getting to a battle end with all the animations that comes up. That's going to be the game there. The trainers will click their actions, and it'll be called.
Yeah, so this being such a big recovery game, both sides having leftovers, grassy terrain, regenerator, all this, the Horn Leech as well, all this recovery, stalling out this game, making it into such a drawn-out game, and it eventually comes down to timer. That Ho-Oh went from full HP to almost getting knocked out, all the way back up to full again, and put in so much work with those Brave Birds.
Yeah, I think with all the recovery that Ho-Oh take, with the leftovers as well, I think it was close to, like, Dimitri dealt probably like 160% of that max HP on there, which is crazy, because it was still just kicking and chilling, and there was options for it to gain back more HP with more defensive switches as well, if there were more time in the game. But all we get is 20 minutes. So.
Yeah, those game timers, sometimes not often coming into play, not often coming into effect, but something that all trainers must really keep in mind. It does come into play sometimes, and it is really important to know how to either play to it as a win con or play against it if it's something that you think you might be kind of be about to struggle against. Because as we saw in that game, both players had to adapt. As soon as that 3-minute timer came up, Jack playing more defensively, making sure to get those protection where he could, try to shut down those big hits coming out from the Ogerpon with the disable, shutting down the Terra Starstorm with the disable, while Dimitri on the other end trying to get those KOs. That big double up, really good call, going for that Horn Leech in the grassy terrain and that Terra Starstorm into the Screamtail. Huge double up, barely not taking the KO, putting it down to just 7 HP. And that Ho-Oh with that big crit, guaranteeing that the Ogerpon was in range of a second one. But now we're going to go over to an interview with both of our trainers and get some discussions going about how they thought those games went.
Cool. Alrighty, so we've got them both here.
Hello,
Dimitri?
hello.
Yeah.
How we doing?
How are we doing, guys?
Not bad. Absolute slog of a game too there.
Yeah, definitely a long game. We went to time. I was looking at my timer in game, and I had 6 seconds to lock in moves towards the end there. It was a bit of a rush.
Yeah, I did
so
see
your
that.
so your in-game time was going down as well.
Yeah, Dimitri.
Yeah, no. I'm like, I gotta click the buttons.
Yeah, it was at close to 4 seconds when we got towards that last turn of locking in action. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so throughout that whole game, kind of two very different teams there that we saw come out from the both of you. Like one of you running the Sun Core, we had double physical restricteds, and on the other end we had no weather, a bit more of a kind of a balancy team, but with two special restricteds. And going into that Ho-Oh seemed to be kind of pivotal to that entire match.
Yeah.
Like, Jack, what made you kind of decide to build around that Ho-Oh and that Groudon core?
Well, it's funny because I always thought when was thinking about double restricteds and Scarlet and Violet, I'm like, Ho-Oh seems like one of those guys that's just like not very good single restricted wise, but is really good as like a supporter because it can just, as you saw, like sit there, take hits, spread a bunch of burns, and then come out, use Regenerator, and then come back in and just do the same thing over and over again. Obviously, that was basically as good of a matchup as you could get for Ho-Oh because of it's got like a 154 special defense. So if it's not a Miraidon or a Kyogre, it will basically eat any special attack that you throw at it. And so overall, that was just like the best position it could be. And I'm glad I got to showcase why I think that the funny chicken bird is actually going to be really good in this format.
Dimitri, how did you feel seeing that Ho-Oh?
I hate the funny chicken bird. I hope it never sees the light of day. Nah, honestly, when I had a look at the team, I was like, I already knew I was in a bit of trouble. Just Ho-Oh just has a lot of like useful tools, especially like you said in the double restricted. Even the Sacred Fire just burning Terapagos is like a massive win for Ho-Oh as well. So yeah, when I saw the Ho-Oh, I was dreading. I was in fear, and rightfully so. Yeah.
Yeah, I learnt that trick when I used Entei in Reg G on my Zamazenta teams, and it was pretty pivotal in keeping Terapagos and other like Focus Sashmon just making sure they can never heal back to full, and that was really useful. So kind of taking those lessons and translating into this format, and obviously if you put Sacred Fire in the sun, it's going to do so much damage. And then you just pair Sun Mons with best friends like Raging Bolt and Screamtail, and all of a sudden you've got a really potent core that can kind of, as you said, Henry, a balanced core, like a control core that I feel really comfortable with, and it is one of my more comfortable archetypes. So just kind of putting the pieces to make sure that I am always in the driver's seat and people aren't expecting the team that I'm bringing. So that's what I like to play.
Yeah, we saw that kind of really well showcased. That second game, the Screamtail coming in kind of on the perfect turn. The Terrapagos has just set up calm mind. Screamtail hitting the field after the instant pivot, just being like, look, I'm here. I can encore you. You need to be able to either deal with this now or prepare for it later, which on the flip side, Dimitri positioned himself really well. So when that encore came down, the Ogerpon was there. It was able to follow me and really allow him to start getting off those Terra Starstorms, get off the Earth Powers. We saw the big Earth Power come off into the Annihilate on the turn that it closed combat, put it down so low, and in range of stuff like Grassy Glide, in range of another Earth Power, absolutely. And then there was another really big call from Dimitri there where he had the boosted Terrapagos there, got it off the field, got that Ogerpon in, only taking the fake out, which was pretty much mitigated by the Grassy Train, and then pivoting back into the Terrapagos again. It was kind of what looked like a really dire situation that kind of turned around and brought the game back to life again.
Yeah, once I was in that predicament, I was pretty much in a lose-lose situation, and then when you get into a situation like that, you have to change something. I'm like, yeah, sure, it's +2 boosts and nice on Terrapagos, but I'm looking at the timer. The timer's running down, and I don't have another 3 turns to sit there and be encore locked into a move. So I thought, get Ogerpon in with an increased attack, get Terrapagos back in again, and maybe we could do something. But I really liked how pretty much with Ho-Ho and with Annihilate, you sort of had, I could Earth Power one, I can't Terra Starstorm the other. You constantly kept switching on me, Jack. It was it was hard to keep up. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, it was sorry guys. It was a very good set overall. Definitely one of the better matchups for Ho-Oh, and Annihilate, obviously very cool. Used that as, it was basically like a GC mon with the focus sash and the coaching and taunt, very versatile. And so it was like, oh well, into Incineroar especially with dual restricteds, and I think Clear Amulet is a bit of a fraud in this regulation in my opinion. And so I was like, well, let's at least get some Defiant boosts, kill Incin with close combat and suddenly just cause havoc with coaching and taunt. But yeah, thank you so much for the match. It was really good.
Nice, thank you as well. It was a pleasure.
Master, have you got any questions for the guys at all?
No questions for them. Just thank you for taking the time out of your day to be on the showcase. Both phenomenal players, and it was a great set to watch. With some great adaptions from you both going into the game too. So it was wonderful. Thank you, guys.
Oh, thank you.
Awesome to see. It was really great play, really great games, and really cool teams coming out from both sides, kind of showcasing the big differences between Reg I and Reg G. Like back in Reg G, we wouldn't have been seeing things like Ho-Oh. We rarely saw it, and if we saw it, we didn't often see it at the high tables. We weren't seeing like a lot of these combinations, and we get to reveal it here. And like Terrapagos and Calyrex Shadow, I don't think is something that a lot of people have been looking at. I think there's been a couple here and there, but not something that people are massively expecting. Like we were talking earlier about how people have been looking at Calyrex Zenta, like Miraidon, Calyrex, like these are the big common things, but we were able to kind of showcase here some of maybe the not so popular ideas, but show why they work and like just how the team building comes together to put together such an effective team run by such effective players. So yeah, thank you so much guys for this set. It was awesome, and I'm looking forward to many more sets from you guys in the future as well.
Sounds good. I'm keen for the rematch, Jack. You're on.
Absolutely. maybe at the Melbourne tables.
Melbourne tables, finals, done.
Absolutely.
That's
but
awesome.
Yeah. And I'll be sticking around to watch the rest of the matches today, so I can't wait for those as well.
Yeah, we'll
awesome.
Be good.
So we'll be back soon. We're going to go to a short break, and when we come back, we will have the matchup between Bryce and Yoav.